I'm just wondering now if this is the point where I should completely swallow my words or if there's still something left to believe in. I do believe in a lot of the things that President Trump said he would do as president. His geopolitical views, as far as how he speaks, are completely different than his actions, especially this time around. But even in his last presidency, there was a lot of problematic issues that I kind of ignored and just blamed on the people that had around him, like Mike Pompeo. Anyways, this last time around, Trump gets in office. Before he even gets in office, he plays like he's going to be doing hardball and posts videos on his True Social of Jeffrey Sachs talking about how dishonest Netanyahu is. Basically putting out this whole ploy that he was not going to be playing into Israel's games this time around. Somehow, some way, once again, he's done the exact opposite of what he said he was going to do. And I think it's important, especially as somebody that has swung from the left to the right, has lost friendships and damaged other ones, that when I put myself out on a limb to say why support a certain candidate, especially here in LA where he's very unpopular, only for him to prove the left right in the fact that he's a con man. Now I gotta wonder, is he under blackmail? Maybe the Jeffrey Epstein stuff is a lot deeper than a lot of us would feel comfortable with, at least the ones that voted for him, right? Obviously, my opinion is that if you're in the tank 100% for a certain candidate, you don't have any credibility with me, because every single one of these politicians has something that they could be criticized. My favorite politician is probably Thomas Massey, but I bet you if I looked into his record, I'd probably find certain things I disagreed with. Anyways, I had a lot of hope for Trump, and now I'm starting to look and realize that I'd been completely bamboozled, at least with this geopolitics. Let's take a look over here at something I find very concerning regarding the intel about how close Iran was. Not Iran, it's Iran. Not to be a snob, but it bothers the shit out of me if you can't say a country that you want to invade and destroy and occupy, or at least have a, what do you call that, a regime changeover. You should at least be able to pronounce the name right. Let's take a look over here. Yeah, so this is a conversation about what was happening in the Middle East with their briefings regarding Iran's nuclear.
Now
within days.
Within days.
That's now, what they told you in this briefing?
Within days.
Sir, just to kind of circle back and put a finer point on this, the days that they were to getting a bomb, that seems to be different from what Tulsi Gabbard had testified to in March. Was there a new assessment? Was that the Israeli assessment? Was that a new American assessment? Was that information new to you in this briefing?
It was new to me. This was a good briefing. It was one of the best I've ever attended. I mean, Rubio, Hegseth, Ratcliffe, General Kane, they didn't bring out a script and read carefully from it. They just looked us in the eye and talked to us.
The assessment that said that Iran was within days of having a bomb, is that Israeli or American assessment?
I don't know.
I don't know. Does anybody not see how that's problematic? What happened? What happened to our foreign policy? Was it all just a show? Did they find some footage from the Epstein man? What happened? I just want to know how he took such a 180, and he even got Tulsi Gabbard, who had all of these stances on the Middle East and not getting involved with bullshit wars after she's been in these conflicts, knowing that they were all based on false, just on bullshit. So what do we do now? What do we do now? Instead, on these briefings, we continue to buy this, which we don't even know if it's American. They don't even ask. They don't even ask if this Intel is American. And then what happens? The whole thing backfires. You got people like Colonel McGregor, Jeffrey Sachs, a lot of scholars and experts in the Middle East all discussing the major issues that were going to happen from the bombing of Iran, which were the ones that terminated the Iran nuclear deal. And here's a funny thing. When they first discussed reinstating a new nuclear deal, it was essentially a complete rewrite of what Obama did. This was an international agreement agreed upon by Russia, China, all kinds of different parts of the international community, France, all came in together and have actually accomplished the goal that they were fearful of. But that wasn't the intent. The intent all along was to cause a regime change and destabilize Iran, just like Syria, Somalia, Libya. We could go into all of this stuff. But I think Kyle Kulinski, as much as I'm not a hard left, when it comes to geopolitics, the left is right on this whole thing. I know that kind of sounds funny. The left is right. Anyways, here we go. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of that.
On the world scene. So as Murtaza Hussain says here, and this is from an Al Jazeera report, but others are reporting on it as well, the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, has signed a law ceasing Iranian cooperation with the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, after recent attacks on nuclear sites. Even if cooperation is reestablished later, the breakdown in continuity of knowledge will cause an issue. Let me explain what this means in simple terms. Iran is building a nuke. They're building a nuke and they're going to get the nuke. That's what this means. So in other words, what I told you would happen, what other astute viewers of this situation told you would happen, it's happened. That Trump pulled out of the Iranian nuclear agreement for no reason. It was working perfectly. It was Obama's deal. It was working literally perfectly. Over a dozen times it was validated. They're following it. No problem whatsoever. Trump ripped it up because Obama did it, right? And did Mr. Tough Guy routine.
Here's another thing that we need to discuss. When they had that 60-day lapse where they were trying to make an agreement, one of the stipulations, which you would call a poison pill, is that they wanted no nuclear enrichment, not even the 3.6% needed for nuclear power. They wanted none, which basically takes away the autonomy of this country and neuters them. When you have an oil-rich country that really needs to be able to commodify and produce this oil, they would like to try and steer towards cleaner, more sustainable energy sources so that they could sell their oil internationally. It's one of the biggest markets for Iran. And when the 60-day deal was offered, which is what Trump discusses, the poison pill was that zero nuclear enrichment, no uranium, no nuclear power. Of course, Iran wasn't going to sign this deal. It was basically like, come out and just suck it. The people that are around him knew that this wasn't going to be the deal. And this was the intent. The intent was regime change. The intent was to continue this escalation ladder to get us where we are now. I'm not sure if Trump just has people around him in his ear, just like the previous administration, that do not have his goals and his best interests in mind, or if the guy's completely conned us. And you know what? Both are highly probable. It's probably a bit of both, to be honest. But it's just so funny because he's played this theater. Like, he even goes to Saudi Arabia and discusses the days of regime change wars and America imperialism are done in the Middle East. He said this to Saudi Arabia. It was all just a show. Anybody that actually takes a minute to look into all of this can see the obvious truth that we're being lied to. All right. Anyways, we got this whole thing. And if you look at people in the past that have actually denuclearized, like Libya and what happened with Gaddafi, who was literally sodomized with the bayonet, we're in the middle of a new era. A new era, an information era. And I don't care if you're on the left or on the right. If you're not free thinking, then you're joining a camp and everything you think is based on one political party's ideology, and you're not criticizing them when you catch them in lies, then you need to open up your mind, because we're living in a uniparty system. People talking about it was going to be different. Well, we were funding the beginning of this genocide and vetoing the ICC's war crimes declarations to Israel during the Biden administration. Anyways, let's see what's coming next. We got some exciting stuff coming next.
We just finished up an interview with Masoud Pezeshkian, who is the president of Iran, the 70-year-old heart surgeon who leads the country we were just at war with about a week and a half ago. We know we'll be criticized for doing this interview. Why did we do it anyway? Well, we did it because we were just at war with Iran 10 days ago and maybe again. And so our view, which has remained consistent over time, is that American citizens have the constitutional right and the God-given right to all the information they can gather about matters that affect them. If their country is doing something with their money in their name, they have a right, an absolute right, to know as much about it as they can. And that would include hearing from the people they're fighting. Now, can you believe everything you hear from the president of Iran? Probably not. But that's not the point. The point is you should be able to decide for yourself whether you believe it or not. And keep in mind that anyone who seeks to deny you that right is not your ally, but your enemy. By the way, we have also put in, for the third time in the last several months, an interview request with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and we hope he accepts that. The interview is limited by a couple of factors. One, it was done by remote through a translator. That's always awkward. For another, I don't speak Persian, and there are all kinds of questions that I didn't ask the president of Iran, particularly questions to which I knew I could not get an honest answer, such as, was your nuclear program totally disabled by the bombing campaign by the U.S. government a week and a half ago? There's no chance he's going to answer that question honestly. I didn't bother to ask it. The answer, in fact, from an American perspective, even from the CIA's perspective, is unknowable. So we dispensed with those, and I asked him very simple questions, such as, what is your goal? Do you seek war with the United States? Do you seek war with Israel? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, the purpose of this was not to get to the absolute truth. That's impossible in an interview like this. The purpose of the interview was to add to the corpus of knowledge from which Americans can derive their own opinion.